I am fascinated, right? Transfixed by this idea that the self is wrapped in mystery and I don't know enough about it. And so that becomes then the propellant for continual self-knowledge. The animals don't have any of that, so they remain where they are, right? In the harmony of their environment. But the trouble is their environment can also swallow them up very easily as well. You see, so there's limitations with both of this. But what we're just trying to focus on now is that because the self is a mystery to itself, it's that contrarium again. There's a dark side to God's consciousness. We have an unconscious. And when you look at all of that, we're not able to sit with that. Because as the German mystics also said, they didn't just speak about a contrarium and God being having an unconscious, which is wild enough. That leads you into deep mysticism to, extrapolate that. We're not doing that here. It also says, they also said that in the contrarium, at the foundation of consciousness is a restlessness, right? And this restlessness is what gives rise to consciousness, right? And the restlessness is ontological, doesn't go away. So again, you're a million miles away from relativism that doesn't accept any of this. They say there's an ontological absolute. There's a restlessness that will never stop. Friction, if you will, there's other words for it, the dialectical monism. And because of that, we've created the noosphere. We're constantly moving forward in our life because the ultimate premise of all science, right? Hegel's book was called The Science of Logic. Both words used in almost a totally different way than we would hear it today. And what we're talking about now is the meaning of it. We're encapsulating why he had the book called The Science of Logic. Logic is the kind. What he meant by logic is the kind of unfolding, a very precise form of sublation, right, and graduation and evolution to get to the noosphere. And it's a science because I'm studying it, I'm seeing it. I have to become aware of it. So the book really should be called How to Become Aware of the Science That Makes You Who You Are, the logic, the steps that make you who you are. And that's what we're extrapolating now. But they will also make sure that they look below. Right? The scientist does not look below like he claims to look. If he did look below to the seedbed of all of this, he'd be mystical. Because it's an underlying restlessness that is absolutely in everything. Everything vibrates, Brownian motion. From the atomic level up. And into the cortex and into the brain. But more importantly, into consciousness itself, which is seeking for its own roots. This is the meditation. And so, let's put it this way that Gabriel Marcel would put it. Because I haven't actually defined how it's really mystical yet. The next statement will. It is mystical. The whole process is not materialistic, but mystical because mystery is the propellant. Right? So as Gabriel Marcel and William Blake said, once you have expanded your reason to come up to the limits, and imagination is then in touch with the mystery. It is the mystery and your relationship with mystery that then makes you a human being, that makes you have a noosphere, that makes you have insight. So it's not facts, an objective truth. That's instrumental along the fucking way. What the teachers should be teaching you is, no, it's a deep relationship with mystery, capitalized. And in that mystery, now you have a Blake at the front of the class. Now you have an Escher. Now you have a Jung, right? Now you have a rank. As I say, even quasi-materialists, there are people who have accepted this even on a level that's quite, but one would prefer a Rilke, a Holderlin, a Gabriel Marcel. Well, we don't have them. They've been put out of a job, as you mentioned earlier. So the mystery of seeing the self and finding out that I can't have complete knowledge of the self is the mystery that is at the root of everybody and at the root of all consciousness. And there's nothing you can do about it. But the thing is, we do something about it. We try to move on. We try to move on, and say, I'm not satisfied yet. I'm not satisfied yet. So the self is in contemplation of the self, or better said, the self is in contemplation of the mystery of the self. So then mystery is important to us, isn't it? Well, it's not important to science, not in the same way. There's a tinkering. It's not mystery, Marcel says, that's of interest to science. It's problems. So in his philosophy, it was two different paradigms, right? Two different visions of world, the problematic and the mysterious. Science is only interested in problems and problem solving, and it does that very, very well. But let it not intrude upon what the artist, the poet, the mystic, the Emersonian type of person does. He should be very good at the problem. You have to know the other. And he says part of our brain is children love to tinker around and ask questions and fix things. But what's missing in the 20th century, he said, is this love and closeness to the mystery. And without that, all science eventually will grind to a halt or become immensely, as we see it becoming totalitarian and materialistic and reductionist. So this is also very, very important. And Gabriel Marcel is definitely somebody that one needs to read. I'll put links below. But go to the next slide, please. See, Schopenhauer is important in all of this because as a Kantian, but he was also an atheist, he emphasizes the uniqueness of this introspection. So anyone following us here now who's toyed with Schopenhauer wants to know what he's about. His philosophy is excellent because of one thing: the extreme emphasis on this inner knowing that one has that the animals do not have. Right? He would put it like we have a quality that is totally unique to human beings, and that we have knowledge of ourselves from the inside. Right? So he was a philosopher of introspection. Right? Where the weakness is that, again, when you talk about intellectual knowing, why are you not talking about feeling? Where I would critique Schopenhauer is that there is no knowledge. Again, this is just my fucking take on it. Everyone can disagree. There is no knowledge of the self or knowledge involved in introspection. It's feeling. Feeling is what is involved in introspection, right? Feeling, and also the constant reappraisal and re-feeling of feeling. How am I feeling now, as we would put it, right? So there's a constant cycle in what we call consciousness of feeling and reappraisal of where we're at, almost like judging a temperature around us and making sure we're comfortable, right? That's what consciousness is. And I go so far to say that in terms of the Western tradition, the downside of the Western tradition is that it has equated consciousness with thinking. When in fact, thinking is involved, but only in a derivative way. And thinking is really an emanation or a re-articulation by words and left brain structures of something that is mostly in the right brain, to do with feeling. And a constant reappraisal, moment by moment, second by second. It is true that right brain process threw up thinking and threw up language, right? But as Ian McGilchrist and others show, no, there's a whole other process involved, and our world today, the materialism of today, is doing damage to that, right? So it's not only, we pointed out the conspiratorial aspects of materialism, we also need to point out that it is running a tank. It's running these bulldozers through a kind of cognition, a kind of sensitivity that is by the day being destroyed. So in one way, Schopenhauer sort of, missed this aspect. That's why I'm bringing it up right now. Go to the next slide, read that. Confirms what we're saying.
Yeah, from Erich Neumann, he says, the hieroglyph for thought is written with the ideogram for heart.
Yep. So we haven't moved very far forward in history in many respects, because the Egyptians, the Chinese, the Arya, how could you possibly do that? To create a hieroglyphic for thinking and have it, the pictogram is the heart. Somebody trying to tell us something there? Yes, they are. Exactly what I've just said. For the next one. Oh, wait a minute. Let me say. Remember, even the word emotion has the word motion in it. Right? So this really demands, that statement that he made really demands a sort of a revisioning of what we even mean. Emotion means motion. So it's a constant. Do you know that even the word mind is a verb originally? Not a noun? The etymology always tells you the truth of a thing, right? So this unique omnidirectional movement that animals do not have, right, is something that is already born out of a numinous experience. And as I said, when you turn intellect in, when you turn cognition in, and this has so much to say about conceptualization and the whole process, Blake's term for it was imagination. But he meant, because he doesn't want a word, he didn't use a word that meant thinking. Because of all of what we've just been saying right now, it's not thinking. It's thinking turned inside. Introspection is introception. Right? It's numinous, because its root is I don't know who I am, and I want to know. And I want to know who I am more than any other possible thing that ever could arise. More than I want to know God or the other person, or what lies at the bottom of the sea, or what is even happening in an animal brain. I want to know more than any other thing, way beyond all other things, who I am. So now do you see that the materialistic science and paradigm, like Blake had always said, is there to totally deviate you from this? His Newtonian sleep with, Newton, the top scientist, at the bottom of the ocean in the sludge. No clue about the whole ocean of existence and life around him, and he's down there in the sludge trying to measure a fucking snail or a worm or something like that. Unaware of what the hell is really going on. So in modern parlance, right, this is known as emotional intelligence. Introception. And introception is rooted in this mystery we're talking about, of the need to know what the self is. And as far as Hegel was concerned, and Schelling and all these people, it's non-ending. And we have to get okay with that. We've got to come into a different comportment with mystery, says Marcel. One of the first steps, if you follow it this way, will be that you're always going to want to see beneath the surfaces. I don't think materialism gives a fuck about that. It pretends to, right? But what it's really doing is constantly measuring the dimensions of the surface. Brilliant, great. But is it really looking beneath the surfaces as often as PR, attempts to do? We'll see. No, I don't think it is. And here is then, now that we've established all of this, right? We need to establish an absolute cardinal fact that is so practical that you can take it out in the streets and use this. It's in the article. But it is this. Given what we've been saying about how all consciousness of the true kind, right, emanates from this mystery and revolves and circulates around it and is always coming back and revisiting mystery, moving back into the problematic, coming back to mystery and back again. Now we see that the reason why materialism exists is because of insensitivity. Right? We spoke about feeling. Since it is a matter mostly of feeling and the recapitulation within your consciousness, constantly measuring and feeling and right brain processes, that implies, does it not, that consciousness also is a thing to deal with receptivity and sensitivity. So my conclusion is, that the materialist person is a deeply insensitive. We spoke of moral inferiority before and hedonistic personality types, right? Yeah, well, this is just sort of following on from that. But the key missing principle is a kind of sensitivity lacking in the materialist. It's not heart, it is thought. Go next slide.